Hi, in this video I want to show you how to reuse RDF ontologies in LinkedDataHub, and namely how to use them to quickly configure the RDF forms in edit mode, which is used to create new RDF instances or edit existing RDF instances. So what you see here is a fresh blank LinkedDataHub. And what we need to do is to go to the administration application, and then we will locate the ontologies container. You can see there's one existing ontology, is the namespace. Okay, so now what we need to do in order to import a new ontology is click this add button here and click import ontology, and you'll get this dialog with two options: either upload ontology as a file or import it from URI. In this case I'll upload it as a file, and I have the SCOS ontology ready here, so I need to choose the right RDF syntax, and then I'll create a new document for this ontology it will be a child of the ontologies container, and I'll call it SCOS. Just click save and click save here, and then the import process starts. It will take a few seconds, and here what we get is a new document with all the SCOS data, all the SCOS terms imported, the properties and the classes and so on. But what this import process also has done, it has created constructors, which are specific SPARQL construct queries attached to classes. For example, this concept constructor is attached to the concept class, and this structure here in the query, that's what drives the forms in editing mode. So meaning that when we create or edit an instance of a concept, we'll see this property here, semantic relation, we will see top concept of, and so on. And these were auto-generated by LinkedDataHub based on the domain and range metadata of the properties, but it might not always work perfectly, so of course it's possible to edit the constructors manually. But what we do now, what we need to do is go back to ontologies and go to namespace and go into editing mode, and we need to add the SCOS ontology as an import to our namespace ontology. Here we can use the autocomplete and then save it, and then it's important to clear the namespace ontology, which clears it from memory and then reloads a fresh copy from the triple store again. So now I go back to the end user dataspace, end user application, and I'll try to create some SCOS concepts. Maybe I'll create a container first for my concepts, just to group them nicely together. And then what I'll do is click the create button again, and this time I'll choose instance, which is this like a placeholder for user defined, user imported classes. So to choose the SCOS concept that we have imported, I'll click on the instance here and instead type concept, and it shows up here. I'll select concept, and you can see those properties that were in the constructor, they show up here. Okay, and then I'll call this document test concept, And okay, I'll save the concept as it is without any properties for now, right? So it is an instance of type concept, but it doesn't have any other properties except for type. And this is not good enough, right? So we probably want to have a label for the concept. We don't have a use for these two properties, but we want to have a label. So what we can do now in editing mode, click Actions button here, and then we can click the Edit Concept Constructors button. And this will open a dialog that will allow us to edit the constructor for this class without leaving the end user application. So let me get back to the admin application real quick. If you go to ontologies and you go to SCOS, so constructors, they are just part of RDF data, right? I can click the edit mode for the SCOS ontology, and then I can find the constructor like here, and I can edit it as a Sparkle query, right? But that's not user friendly. So let me go back to the end user application. So that's where we have a much more user friendly interface for constructor editing. So as I mentioned, let's say I want a label for all concepts. When I'm editing concepts, I want the label property to show up, preferred label. And of course, its value will not be a resource, it will be a literal, and it will be a string, right? So I'm saving this constructor now, and what I need to do is just open the edit mode for this document again, and you can see the preferred label shows up here as a property for this instance. That's because I changed the constructor for the concept class, and I added this property to the constructor. And of course, the construct query was updated behind the scenes. So I'll call this concept a test concept, right? So yeah, what we did now, imported an ontology, it got auto-generated constructors that drives the editing forms, and then we changed that constructor, added one property without leaving the end user application. So we can try importing one more ontology. I'll go back to the admin application. I'll click add and import ontology again. And this time, let's try to import it from a URI. So I have the organization ontology in this case. I have it ready, and I have the namespace of it. That should be enough. So LinkedDataHub will load the ontology directly from this URL. And again, I'll create a new document for it under ontologies. And I'll click save. It takes a little longer because this happens over the network, right? The data is loaded from the W3C namespace. But as you can see, all the ontology data is imported. And again, some constructors were auto-generated. So let's find some class that has constructors. Formal organization, that has a constructor here, right? So we can try creating an instance of formal organization. But first, let's go back to ontologies, and again go to the namespace ontology, edit it, so we can import the organization ontology just like we did with SCOS. I add an imports property, and then I choose the core organization ontology. Okay, and then again I'll clear the namespace from memory so it gets reloaded. And then I go back to the end user application here, go back to root, and I will not be creating a container. I'll just quickly show you that just the same way the formal organization will show up here, and the form will use the auto-generated constructor. Of course, it might not look great, it might have too many properties, but that's why we can add the constructor here, as I showed you before. But I'm not gonna do that. I'll leave it as an exercise for you, because we already did it with SCOS. So this is how you reuse ontologies in LinkedDataHub. And what it took us 5 minutes maybe to configure the form editing interface using constructors, which usually are auto-generated, but then can also be easily manually edited. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you'll use LinkedDataHub to reuse some ontologies and create some data.